that whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. Hello there everyone, and welcome to this additional video for this month of December with me today, where I will tune more deeply into the spirit, and I want to do a very special video offering in a form of spirit messages shared. Again, I want to do choices that are more personalized choices. This is a gift from me to you. As I have already shared with you, I will be more in retreat mode in December, so I have already recorded all my videos. At the beginning of the month, I will put them all out simultaneously, and so you can enjoy, you can rewatch them whenever you want. I don't yet know what I will do, when the new year gets closed, if I will be offered to do a retrospective journey of everything we have been assimilating and walking through. I don't know. I will do Patreon work. If you are a member of my light team there, if you support me there, please know that I share for a general overview, which is every month I do channel spirit message with the Ascension grid, which is a light grid for our Ascension journey that comes through me at this particular time. These are channel frequencies. It's a more vibrational language as well as a language of spirit that then addresses us through the message that's channeled. And then I do monthly lunar messages as well. Channel spirit drawing. Last month I started with the first one. It was a beautiful drawing. So I do that as well. Those who support over the first threshold, you can select 2 different tiers. I don't know what they're called. Tiers. I don't even know what that means. 2 different options of supporting. Those who support more will also get each month a more additional content, which I want to work with flow. So I don't want to determine, it will be this and will only be this. Spirit has told me recently that I have to keep my space very open because the vibrations keep on rising. So what I offer has to be in flow. So last month, for example, I did specific personal, individualized light ascension grids for people who support for that second option, more advanced option, which is more personalized. So I always do the general message first, then I do the personal content, then I do the lunar messages. Of course, the channel drawing is in alignment with the spirit guidance for each month as well. So you can join at any time. Please be aware that people who support there, it's not just like you paid $5 and then, you're out the first month. It's not supposed to be like that. Please understand that this work is a constant art of devotion and input of not just hours, but, it's like years and years of work. So you can have that ability to translate spirit in such accuracy and purity as it wants to come at each time, wants to bring us the messages of full soul liberation. And it's not something you can just like, I'm in, I'm out. I don't want it to be that. I want it to be a true community of light for people who truly are devoted to the journey of ascension. So if you're not one of those, it's best to just click off or something like that. There's much information other people are sharing, and I want to work with devoted individuals who understand that this is a journey that it requires much of your work. This is not I share certain information, you read that information and that's it. It's not about that. This is a coded, light encoded information that then travels through waves of energy that you have to be able to receive even, and each one will of course receive them at their own level of vibrational attunement. So that's what I wanted to say first. I hope you will enjoy the messages. I also have another update that I've shared a few messages this year. I did the Beloved reading. I did Your Life Purpose, Divine Illumined Purpose reading, which is the higher level calling of your being. There's 3 different levels that came through at that reading. And then I did also Venus retrograde video reading, plus the Venus initiation, what we've learned through that journey, when it's now for us to culminate in and to integrate. So this one actually is the 5th one, I think, will be about what is shifting, what is actually coming to a space of synthesis for you personally. And then we will also do a general message as well for all of us with channeled words of wisdom from Spirit. And I want to say that this is, I'm not going to say it's the last one because I never like to keep energy close, but I want to move that level of work starting next year more to those people who support the content I share on Patreon. So I want to do more work in terms of channel video readings specifically aimed at Ascension, and more general videos maybe here on YouTube if there's not something as crazy happening as, you know, blocking channels and people, and then it's not up to me. Then we're going to have to find new ways, right? So I want to start, okay? Sorry. So I have here a little crystal ball, right? The ball, it's not a crystal ball, a glass ball full of gemstones. Well, they're not gemstones, right? They're tumbled stones. And I want you, again, this is going to be very random. This is very spontaneous because I did not plan this. It just came to me. I thought I already finished all of my material, and then the guidance was like, oh, I got to do this now. So that I'm free and enjoying my integration work that I have to do myself, you know, this month ahead. Because like I said in the general Ascension update, this is a month of very high spiritual, it's almost like adaptability to the new way of being. And even in the channel Ascension guidance, which if you're following and supporting on Patreon, you're able to see that's a very high spiritual consciousness available that we can work with at this time. The synthesis is strongly present. There's many beings who are capable of tuning into that, and they're refining their abilities of the soul to tune into higher levels of consciousness. Not just what we call the first level of awakening. That's just the first level. So I have these gemstones, tumbled stones here, and I want you to think of don't think of a number in terms of a linear sense, but think of a resonance. Think of a resonance, right? If you don't think of a resonance to follow right now, find a resonance within each stone. We're going to pull. And then we're going to see. It's going to be kind of a mismatch dream. So I have the first stone here. Green jade. It's green jade. That will be our first stone. I don't have any specific or additional requisites to use this month. That's all I have. This one is charoite. I don't know if you know it. It's I think it's mined or something in Russia. It's violet with beautiful lines, like angel wings. It's charoite. It's similar to seraphonite, except it's like purple, more like purple violet. And then we have the third one. I think it's red jasper, right? Isn't it? That's what we got. And then we're also going to take one, which will be all of this for later, but I'm not going to show it to you, okay, as I pull it out for this month. It will be like a surprise. I want to reach it, but it doesn't want to come out. Maybe it's not that one. No, it's not that one. I'm not showing it to you. Let's see what it is. Sorry, you won't know why I'm laughing, but I'll tell you at the end. Okay, I don't laugh so often in my videos. I do laugh a lot, though, by the way. It's just the videos are always such serious topics, right? So I don't have to like, oh, this is this and that, ha ha ha. You know, it doesn't suit the whole theme or the area of work. So I want to show you what card decks we will be looking, looking into this guidance with for you. So I have selected 4 piles of them, 4 tools. First one is always the Lightworker Oracle, which I love so much, and this one as well. I use them also in the, what they're called, Illumined Oracles that I send as gifts for people who donate or people who first join my Patreon team. And this is the Light Activations, no, Sacred Geometry Activations Oracle. I also use those for that. Then I've chosen the Golden Path Oracle because it somehow aligns with this topic of, the golden path of illumination. What this journey requires, we don't even know until we really move through it. It's so much. And now whispers of healing. Something for love. Okay, so I'll be taking the cards out now. And you have one task right ahead of you, which is select one of these stones, right? So we're going to have first one. I have to first take them out of the box. I don't know why I didn't do that before. I've told you this was a very spontaneous video. I did not prepare myself, except for dressing myself. I have to clothe myself to get here. And the message will be, you can ask a question right now, something more specific for you. This is like an interactive reading, which means like whatever you receive the message is meant for you, even if you watch it the next year or whatever. It's beyond time. As you know, I don't operate in a linear sense of time. And maybe you come in another time, already forget about this, choose something else. It's a message for you in that moment, you know, it doesn't matter. So what we will be doing is have these 4 piles, or a whole stack of cards, right? So I will show you the stones again, and we have number 1 is green jade. Number 2 is charoite. The camera is not the best. You know, I'm using a camera that someone sent me in 2010 or 2011, so it's super old, but I still like it. And I'm kind of environmentally friendly. I don't want to throw things away if they're still working, so, you know, it's how I am. And this beautiful, almost like a triangle shaped red jasper. So there we have 1, 2, and 3. It's just for your choices, or if you have a special magical link with them somehow, I don't know. Again, I want to say that the biggest purpose for doing this is on your path of true ascension, which is not a path of acquiring information, which now, as you know, there's so many information sources coming from left, from right, up and down. Who's right? What's our true ancient history? Where are we truly going toward? Is this going to be the new golden age? Is it going to be the new earth? Are we truly going into humanity going extinct in a few generations? What is this really about? And one can get so lost or warped into this reality of, you know, it's like we're trying to bend information so that it suits us in a way. But the true, you know, sovereign path of the ascending individual and what I call physical ascension journey is that when you really focus on the world being first an expression of you. So you are that first expression of source that looks into reality. So everything you receive as information, you have to digest for what suits you. You have to filter through it, because nothing is like, okay, the Bible is correct. No, this source is correct. Oh, that's not right. Oh, that's wrong. It's more about what are, you know, the crystallized aspects we receive through, let's say, many different portals of information, different perspectives, and what I've called in the previous video, I think, the acquirement of not just different perspectives, but a unified vision of what we filter through within our own core, what somehow guides us on this higher illumined path, this path of complete liberation from the outside. Of course, we're still beings in the physical. We still acquire external information, but to use it in a sense of digestion and integration and really filter through that discernment, which means filter through the information in a way that what truly suits us in this moment. Is that even for us, or are we just like, you know, filling ourselves up with different things? Because a lot of the times these are like things that will clog our filter, right? So we have filters, then they get clogged because of all this. So we're kind of using information to, it's almost like overwhelm ourselves instead of, you know, adjusting to the vibrational patterns that flow through a source of information and that information itself. So when we tune into this reading, and whatever I do, even in the personal sessions, Spirit never will give you guidelines directly, because it's you are an aspect of Spirit. You're not separate from it, so you're not being told. So whenever people tell me things like, I've been told this information about me, I go like, that's still separation, that's still duality, because no one in truth can be told something about them. It's still like someone telling you, as it's one aspect telling the other. It's still born in separation. So Spirit works through unity consciousness. In that unity consciousness, you're already an aspect of that Spirit. So it's like you are informing yourself. So even when I will share these messages, they're coming from aspects of you that are Spirit. Okay, so let us begin. This is about it's not about what people usually, when they watch these readings now, it's full of tarot and different psychic readings and mediums doing all sorts of things. I'm not against that. It's just not my path. People are acquiring so much information. It's usually general, you know, and it's so general that in that general, of course, everyone will find an aspect of themselves. That's the whole point of general topics and themes. What we're working here is a synthesized message of something that's most potent for you in the moment to focus your attention on, in terms of creating a divine synthesis of your journey, stepping deeper into the path of true illumination and the path of ascension that is sovereign in each moment. So this is not you being told something about you, what will happen. It doesn't work. Spirit never gives information like that, because in truth, Spirit does not give information. Spirit brings light, illumination to our realm of creation. So number one, I'm already doing your stuff, okay? And seeing what comes through for you. Just randomly going through. So those of you who are, number one, the green jade, spontaneous flow. Should we say some messages about what comes through the stone first? Green. Green is flow, right? Green is life. We say, this is green. People say, oh, it's a frequency of money. Well, money for me isn't actually green. It's more like gray. It's like the internal state of abundance, which is flow. When you are in flow of the vital energy of life, you are moving along with your purpose. So this green also is, it's like you're breathing oxygen, right? It's like trees are so important because they assist us to have the kind of atmosphere we, at this point of our biological form, require to operate as a physical being, you know, to create here in this realm. So when things are not being cherished in what is organic and natural for us, they're not always, to say that, when they're not appreciated, we're gonna, a part of us takes it for granted. So I feel this is almost like telling you that you're learning, or you're coming into this wisdom of breathing life with greater respect for life itself, you know, respect for trees, for things that are alive. And as you do that, you're actually respecting your own life force. So for me, the energies of red and green, especially together, are so much about life force itself. And it's almost like breathing with fuller lungs and taking life more in. It's like taking in more of life. Because when you do that, it's even when we breathe deeper, like we get more oxygen in, so we oxygenate much better. So this is also about understanding that life supports you. So when you breathe more life in, life supports you, and you're able to be a conduit for higher consciousness. So if you were, in a way, prone to seeing reality in a certain matter up until this point, what you're doing is, instead of trying to adjust elements of it, just simply stepping into your center and allowing yourself to breathe with fuller lungs and allowing to take life more in. So we have two different perspectives, right? We all live a part of us, an aspect that feels more mundane, right? The trivial day-to-day activities, like waking up, brushing your teeth, eating breakfast, drinking tea, things like that, you know, having certain errands. But there's an aspect here that we can feel magic even within those, or we can go like, oh, I can't wait, the time passes by so that I do what I really want to do. And still, when we do that, it's still a part of duality. So you have these messages of consciousness, right? And then you have listen to, of course, your heart. You have initiation by fire. And you have, sorry, I mixed them up, flow. So you see flow, this is exactly what I saw. When I held this stone, even before seeing that, I felt something like this. You see nature, green, and flow, water. This is what Spirit was showing me for you. It's like, even if you are, let's say you still live in a city or an environment that feels denser in vibration, you can connect to that essence as a frequency within you. So it feels like you're learning how to know or understand or recognize your heart space as the highest force of creating or generating that flow. So regardless of the circumstances that maybe are going on around you, you know, and it feels like you're learning how to use that flow to kind of like not tame, you'll tame in a way, tame the inner beast, the inner lion. But this initiation by fire, it's like you see there's all this fire and kundalini, and green kind of soothes the energy field. It softens, and of course green is the color of the physical heart chakra and the physical heart vibration, or the energy as we know it. So there's a listen to your heart, and it feels like for you to step into the next aspect of your consciousness, which your soul already knows. So you do feel that calling. But there is, because sometimes this brings a higher force of life that starts to flow through us, right? Like here, she has responsibility to this fire she is creating. She's generating this fire, and she is now contained within this bubble until she masters that. Okay, this is how I see it. So here behind is like the city of light, and just today I meditated on the whole phrase cities of light, and how in many prophecies we were told, yes, in the golden age there were cities of light and they're going to be there again. But then again, the city of light cannot be born without the individual first becoming the expression of that. So we have to become like a city of light ourselves. Um, so here in your own personal space containment, you're like learning to master polarity. And when all that fire, which we call, the activation through life force awakening, and it's like the cultivation that comes through the Kundalini expression, and it starts to rise up. And this is what I do in my work of life force mastery. And the channels of information I give you about the importance of this path, as well as the courses I've created, it's all implying to this, right? So this is the initiation by fire, which is, it's almost like at this time, this is where you are. So it maybe feels like your world or reality hasn't expanded that much, but there, this flow, right? So it's like the river starts somewhere and then it flows towards something. So it's kind of maybe how it feels now, but we can't control what we're really flowing towards. Maybe the destination is always not fully known, and so there has to be full allowance. So if where you are now in this feeling of there is something higher there is something more refined, but physically it's like I'm there, but I'm at the same time not there. This is how it feels. So you're learning to, this is what is the journey of synthesis, to know that the primary narrative of where you are now is to be the master of this polarity, and to learn within this captivated bubble to understand that if we are, let's say we receive a certain responsibility from spirit, we have to master that responsibility first before we go out into the world with it. So this is kind of like learning the art of cultivating the abundance through life force, but not in a way that would be somehow negative, because we still hold as humans a lot of beliefs, convictions, not just of ourselves, but even reality. So it might feel like you're being contained in a certain bubble at this time, that things are not like really progressing forward or moving forward, but you know that there's flow. Anytime you feel there's a lack of flow, you can connect to green energy, invite more green, more vibrancy into your heart space. We live in environments that are not always green, especially those of us who live in northern climates. In wintertime, even most of autumn and spring, we don't have much green on our trees, and even the grass gets more gray. Sometimes the weather feels murky, especially with the increased chemtrail activity. A lot of our sunlight is being covered all the time. So it's important that the way we bring healing to the planet is being the healing light ourselves. So people always feel like, oh, I need to assist the planet, I need to serve the planet. No, you're here to serve yourself in a way that you become just an extension of the planetary organic way, the way planet functions through life force. People who don't, they always feel planet is a threat. We as humanity, we need to find ways to protect against the planet when she's like raging with fires, volcanoes, earthquakes, all these things, right? Natural catastrophes, we call them. I remember I was in school, I was in college, and they actually taught us that in truth, from the natural perspective, there are no natural disasters, only from the perspective of the, what's it called, the anthropology, right? So the human kind of anthropocentric, I don't know what's it called, I just know this Slovene term, but it's like this human-centric perspective sees us like that. So when you're learning to tame, right, the inner fires that are starting to rise within you, because the consciousness that where you are is expanding, you're there, you're mastering that flow. And maybe sometimes we want to be somewhere else, we want physical things to change. It's not always like that, because on the path of true ascension, on the path of true mastery, we are always taking the steps and the initiatives where we need to be, because that best serves our own process. It's not like being where we want to be. There is only where we are now. and for you to find that containment. Just connect to the green, connect with the gratitude for nature, even when nature is not green or abundant with life force that shows on the outside. It's kind of like the message, be at peace when even the fire that you feel, the fire, the passion for life, maybe feels it's more like just the inward fire, and don't associate it with the environment and how it is or how things should be. And a lot of us are feeling that very intensely at this time, because we're learning to be everything, that everything is contained within this bubble where we are, that all of our consciousness can flow, right? I think this is the most important visual to use at this time if you want. It's like you're also safe, you're also protected. So when sometimes we feel things are not moving forward, it's because we're actually protected. We're still maybe a little vulnerable because we haven't fully mastered the whole package yet where we are. It's kind of like we're still in the attainment process. And at those times we may be more exposed. We don't have all the pieces yet. We just prematurely want to jump into action sometimes. So yes, during this time, instead of rushing into things and whatever, sorry, I'm just mixing it up a little, is important to honor your heart space, listen to your heart, because everything that's there, the soul has already created. So in a way, what you're coming into a closure towards the end of the year is realizing that this is what you have been perhaps practicing all year, maybe not always awareingly, but now you're more conscious of the journey. You know, this conscious interaction between the spirit, you, and the planet. It has to be a triad, right? And the triad is created when you have your own triad, the body, mind, and soul fully established. So that's like life force, the flow can be felt. So this reminds me of the planetary life force. And, you know, this breathable energy when you walk through a forest. And this is not always available, like I said, when forests are resting, when the trees are not there, except for the pine trees, you know, the trees with the needles, they're still there. But it's something different in the green process with leafy trees, right? Photosynthesis is created this way. And it's kind of like the photosynthesis now is in this inner state, but it's a different alchemical journey. And this is the initiation of fire. I've shared in one of my previous videos that when you are working with intense energy levels, sometimes it will feel like you're being contained in a certain space, but it's because you're working with a lot of energy and you're not meant to use it in any way that would burn your own system, or, you know, even send that energy out to the collective. Because, like I said, the soul is always partially in training through the human experience or any other denser physical experience of life. So just be at peace. Know that you're kind of like, you know, you're in this process of learning how to manifest through life force. And the biggest expression is connecting your life force with the planetary life force and feeling that sense of, you know, your energy levels might, when you're fully connected and one with the planet, might feel they're fully influenced by it, which they are, because you're no longer artificially trying to create something. Like, you know, people at this time, we call it the happy December. Everyone needs to go out and party and drink and all of that. And it's people in this lower consciousness awareness. It's almost like they're programmed. Just don't stay indoors, don't get bored, you know, don't do the things they used to do in the past, right? They lit candles, they created magical atmospheres, they were more in the house, they were more like communicating, they were playing games, they were more with their families and enjoying themselves in more natural ways, more connection. Now it's all about go out, do, produce, buy, shop for clothes, things, presents, right? So this is like being in tune with the rhythms and cycles. Your cycles and the planetary cycles are becoming more one and unified. So that's the message. I hope it was well received, resonated. I'm somehow not guided to put these back in the pack. So all of your messages will be, I guess, fully unique. So there we go. Number 2, you have the violet. It doesn't look so violet in the camera, but it has like these beautiful, almost like ice particles. It looks like you know, in the ice sculpture, you get these needles from ice. It's charoite. I think it's mined in Russia. I don't know. So it's your message. It's turn for your message, guys. This is so weird for me because even though I'm not live, when I'm doing things like this, I'm prepared before. It feels like I am live in some version. I don't know, for some reason. Okay, so before we look even at the cards, should we say a few words again for you about the stone? For me, it feels like a stone of liberation. So yeah, the first message was about taking life in with fuller lungs, even when it feels like life force is not flowing at its fullest, but learning that it is from within you. This one is more like liberation. You know, violet is also the great violet flame of transmutation. Transformation is the first aspect of that, and the last one is transfiguration. It feels like an angel jumping into something, like something new maybe. So it's a transformative time indeed, for sure. Now let's see the cards. Yeah. Oh, it's so interesting because the first one was the initiation by fire. I guess it will be an overall theme as well. I guess all of you watching are stepping quite into your fire mastery because the first one had the initiation by fire. This one is the flame of inspiration. It's also fire. It's interesting, right? Because we had so much about the fires, and now I just was watching today one of the documentaries about the volcanoes and the super volcanoes. I was getting educated where they are on the planet, connecting more with that because it's becoming very important. Because the planetary life force in itself is rising, which is bringing that molten lava or magma to the surface. So I'm not surprised these messages are coming through different oracles. So flame of inspiration. It also feels like the phoenix, and it does connect with the violet stone of violet flame of transformation as well. You have the dynamic. All right, there's a triangulation here. This is also the tantric energy because the tantric symbol literally is the triangle. Then you have the reassurance of the golden light. So you have either recently or you're at the threshold of really connecting with the what I call the golden white light of illumination, and you have reawaken. Okay, so there's something within you that I feel as well. There's reawaken, and there's a child here. It's like a magical child that rests on a bed of something, maybe grass, and there's a spider web there as well. Yeah, something was reawakened, this creativity, but somehow for some reason it felt like you were waiting more, you were in the processing, you were more in the kind of like retreating until I know this is the right thing. I don't know yet. And you were maybe gathering a lot of information. And at this point, your point of synthesis is knowing how to act without needing to act prematurely. It's more like following the flow of life force in that dynamic change. For you, I have somehow the impression to read this. And it says the frequency of dynamic supports our ability to harmonize between layers and aspects of different origins and frequency. It helps us to put together a reality that is made up of many different elements, both familiar and completely new, with ease, grace, and great joy. That's exactly what I said. You were gathering. You were kind of in that. It's almost people who are called the hoarders, who gather a lot of stuff. But it was more like you were receiving from many aspects of you, and in the meantime, you felt like I'm in need of more rest. But something beneath the surface was gestating. Here's the spider web. I'm not sure you can see it because it's kind of dark. It felt like the sleeping angel that now awakens, the sleeping angel now awakens. These are the words I hear. So the reassurance of the golden light is like, it's very similar in the first frequency, the first choice we had. It's that feeling when things are not necessarily moving forward physically. And it's for all those of you who are definitely on the path of physical ascension, is this work requires a different level of understanding and mastery, because a lot is done inwardly before it comes in the outer expression of life, because life is formulated through life force. It's not manifested through ego and a clash of wills and going against the flow, because the mind is leader. People always tell you, yeah, regenerate the body or whatever by changing your mind, the frequency of the mind. No, you have to unprogram the mind. That's the first step. But truly moving the frequency, or going with a new body consciousness, is the art of understanding your light body, understanding how your light truly is, so you can bring those same principles of your light body, which are kind of like light liquid codes of information and how they fuel your process and evolutionary growth, and applying that knowledge. And this is what I was doing for years. It's like doing, but at the same time, I'm unplugging from the way the majority thinks we need to manifest and do things, and the way we create in a more graceful way of creating, right? So definitely there's something big that's now ready to transform out of all the inputs that were there. That was the words, those were the words I heard. The sleeping angel now awakens, a flame of inspiration. So maybe you were looking at other people, even, oh, look, everyone's there creating something. What am I to do? A lot of people, maybe in this group, are still asking themselves, what's my purpose? Well, the purpose is you. The purpose was remembering your spirit and allowing the spirit to purify the soul in a way that through the human experience in this time and all the other times, maybe perhaps if you've lived what is called the human experience, need to be gathered and purified through what here is called the reassurance of the golden light. So it's okay that you've gathered all these pieces so you could be aware of what, what is truly an element of that experience, and it brought you an aspect. You kind of like take it a little from here, a little from there, a little from there, but I'm compiling a new picture and vision of myself now. And this is important. This is also a purpose. It's almost, when people who do massive research, they also perhaps first study other materials. Doesn't mean they will copy them exactly, but they're taking little elements of what within them ignites their own creative process. So maybe you were a part of that, taking different elements which are now ready to come together in full form. So we can't rush prematurely into actions. I guess that's our main theme here today. A lot of us have been gestating on the inside for quite a few years. And I feel here it's also related with the movement of Jupiter into Sagittarius, which in my case exactly as well, because I do have that alignment myself. And it's like the Jupiter return that I'm now experiencing. So it's like, it's not like you didn't do anything, right? The angel here is sleeping. It's like it was a gestation mode. It's like a hybridization period as well. What is the hybrid? Hybrid is not what we think, oh, we were hybridized by all these beings, and no. Hybridization is basically, it's like you take one element, you take another, and then you create a mixture. It's like you call it, oh, that's a hybrid. It's a mixture of this and that. This is what it feels like. And the way you want to move forward, the way you want to step forward into a new life is with the assurance of the golden light. And this is when the self, as that spirit essence, gives you the green light and says, yes, now things have matured. And something pops up in the physical world as an opportunity. And this is a magical occurrence. It's not something you can control and push forward. So that's your message. I hope you resonated with it. I hope you brought you some clarity of what you're now culminating within, or synthesizing into something that eventually will become a new form or format even. And number 3, the red jasper. Yeah. Let's see. Again, I feel like I'm live. I've been doing that before, but I think it's more like when I do it like this, it's your energy from the future of watching this already affecting me here. It's probably already past when you're watching this, but there is no time like this. So it is what it is. It's just this now. So again, before looking at the card, so we don't cheat, we're going to say a few words about the stone. Of course, you have a triangle as well. Red jasper is the root chakra, but I feel it's beyond that. Somehow I feel it has to connect with the whole structure. It reminds me of volcano and the fact that I've just been watching a volcano documentary today, and the messages were all about the fire. It's like there are no coincidences. There's a lot of us who are assisting with the rising of the planetary life force at this time, and you might realize that you are embracing different levels of heat waves in your body which align with these natural processes. And people always say, well, global warming, it's coming from the outside, and CO2 emissions and this, and we all know part of it is a huge hoax. There's just like a few elements of truth, but the rest is just a hoax to get us to do things that they want us to ascribe to, like they're doing chemtrailing. So they say, yeah, we have to protect the planet against the global warming. So yeah, we're just protecting you by doing that. Yeah, and you're poisoning us at the same time with neurotoxins. That's great, right? It's like going to such extreme levels of insanity that's like eliminating the very nature of what makes us human, and the way our bodies are supposed to be seen as sacred, then they're just seen as vessels for whatever they want to do with, whether they want to get rid of them or not. So it's like a lot of the people at this time, because we've foreseen this at the higher soul level, we came here to hold a light so the planet in itself will know, not just, it's again about taming the fire. It's like volcano. It's like you're lifting up life force, and if it comes prematurely, it can be damaging to the body because you haven't learned to guide the energy of the life force through the system of the chakra cultivation. And it's the same with the planet, right? Because so much is changing, and they're tempering, with a lot with the planetary energy. And this, as I've shared in the previous video, and one of them is almost like the war for life force. Everyone now is trying to get life force from something. We call these different beings, these ETs, the archons, they're like praying. They had, this reminds me, I need to share this. This is something that came forth today. It's not just for you, it's for everyone, but this guides me to talk about it now. Is they had all these blood rituals, they still do, right? And even the whole idea of war that's always being pushed forth. It's almost like programmed in the human consciousness, is because when something is, when life is eliminated in such a violent manner, the life force, it's like, goes out, but it's a shock, right? It's in a shocking way. In many cases, these beings, when the life force is released, because it's released in shock, and in many cases terror, it's not released in the way when you're like consciously moving towards the exiting of your body. So there's a war of life force on so many levels. For planetary life force, for the way people have been leaving the planet, the way they have been dying, trying to control that. And a lot of us have come here to hold the levels of the scales of this process, to kind of like stabilize the energy, because so much of the life force is constantly being like stolen. It's like preyed on. It's like, so if you don't master the art of cultivation, someone will be lurking there and wait for it. Like people call these beings the archons, right? The lords of the invisible realm, like very, very dense, dark layers we cannot see, but in these blood rituals, they have been kind of opening the cracks, portals to these realms, very like lower realms, and somehow these entities have been starting to surface and starting to toy and play with human minds, and telling them you need to do these rituals, it's like calling back the gods to come. But in truth, it was much else, many different things at stake. So there's so much we still don't understand. The importance of blood comes up here. Red jasper always reminds me of blood, and it's the blood itself is the physical carrier of life force, that when life force is being moved, and it goes and it vitalizes or revitalizes our organs, and it moves through the cellular structure of our body. So when they do these blood rituals, it's almost like they need to somehow stay alive, because these are the beings that have separated themselves from what is the organic consciousness of life-giving. They have become the trapped consciousness of life-taking, which is the consciousness of death. And that's why these lower, denser frequencies are always represented with skulls and things related to death, and so it's like becoming the part of the occult. But in truth, it's just very simple understanding. Once you know yourself, once you master your life force, you don't have to know every single fact that has been happening on the planet. And so you do have to know yourself. You do have to master your life force. So this was the message coming through, not just for you, but I guess for everyone. It's so important to stay balanced, because you're holding a lot of energy that supports this process of life force on the planet, not just being tamed, but the planet can equally distribute the burning, it's like the burning sensation like we had in the first message, right? All these messages are for the group as well, right? Not just for one being. First one who has initiation by air. So here's not just the fire. So yes, it's like balancing. You see, the being is receiving like from on high, and he's learning to be balanced. So that when all this is rushing, all the raging fire, he can be in that state of being that peaceful embodiment of resolution. It's interesting. Then you have the synergy. And the frequency of synergy supports our allowance and acceptance of not so obvious, never seen before combinations and unions that result in new ways of functioning, working, thinking, relating, loving, and being. It reminds us to embrace the unfamiliar so that new yet exciting co-creations can give birth to a new reality. So I feel you are a part of that new energy here on the planet, that you don't just work for the self. You don't always know, but you're here to balance the scales. And it's like maybe the first group is still learning how to tame this, but you're a mountain, and here it's like confirmed, it's like the Jade Mountain. It's funny because the first stone was the jade, and now we have the jade in the card, the Jade Mountain. It's again aligned with the first stone, so the message is that which is last is again first, right? So it's like first message also applies to you. That's what they were showing me. So they're all connected. And of course, it's the dragon. Barriers, the dragon. Dragon is also very much connected with the energy of volcanoes, of fire, of erupting fire. So I'm laughing because in all three oracles, we have the fire energy. So we're kind of like coming into a synthesis, especially towards the end of the year. Those of you who are doing real mastery as an inner alchemy, not just getting information in you, in your head. But this is really something beautiful. That's a number 13. 13 is the great goddess, the spirit number. The mountain and the dragon tells me that you are of a very ancient energy and source. A lot of beings who are at this planet, they were the beginnings when the humanity was given the first impulse of life, and they were here as those beings who were impulsing through this consciousness, and now they're here again to receive, to remember. Sorry, I gave it this direction and goes in that direction. It's like shifted in the camera. It's like a mirror view. So it's like, it feels like so much that it's coming always towards you, so you can be in this instead of this restless chaotic state that the majority of people is in. And this person is, you see, they're kind of like in an isolated environment. They went on this mountaintop, and again, here's a mountain. This reminds me of my own journey because I'm also a creation pillar, and we go through immense training. I've been going through training, like one initiation after the other, my whole life. And besides what I do in these videos, it's just one tiny percent of what I do instead of just my being. It's like I had to go and I had to be isolated. I had to be just myself. I had to master what we had in the first card, right? This taming of the inner life force energy, so they can be used not aggressively and impulsively, but through the act and art of love. And this is what it feels like here, that this is what you're remembering. And you're remembering now to, the first part of your journey was like remembering this ancient energy. The dragon is like this ancient, and how you were here. Again, you were also gathering different aspects, but in a different way than number 2, who was gathering more from the aspects of their soul. This is more like, these are more like universal levels of energy that when they combine within you, you see they're coming into you. They're like flocks of birds here going into through a stream of consciousness, and this being is receiving them in a very isolated space. They're the mountain. They're their own mountain. It's like they have already mastered their life force. You see, there's green here again. So therefore, this is red, right? And when I go to the mountains here, when I went into some mountains of the Alps, there's a lot of these red stones. And I love the white stones, the crystalline, more sparkly white ones. But I remember just seeing those red ones right next to them. I was like, ooh, but this is so good. Like, how do you make like such a red rock if you're mostly, when you look at the mountains, they're like white, grayish, little bluish hue. It depends, right, at the atmosphere level, how you view it. But it's like, sometimes it feels like, wow, you know, how is this made? So there's this importance of this. A lot has to also deal with iron. I think the element of iron, maybe, when you are a part of this energetic, you know, Earth also is told to have the iron core crystal. So when you have such a strong initiation and presence on the planet, it's good that your intake of iron also is increased. I know I have to do this myself too. So I was eating a lot of nettles because they have a lot of iron, and I started to bring back what I mentioned to you in one of the previous videos when I was guided to work with my own menstrual blood, because it has the iron that we self-produce, and kind of bringing it back in the cycle through my body. And this was the way Spirit guided me, and can be new to us. And as you know, blood has a very strong scent, very deep, and because of the iron, right, the iron component, and it's somehow working with blood consciously. And instead of seeing blood like ugh, because we had this belief, because as you see, so much blood was spilled on our planet through the consciousness of war that was perpetuated, like constantly bombarded. Recently I was watching this TV show that I used to like, but then I realized it's just like violence after violence. There's just a little love. Sometimes they do a little love, right, and love making there, but mostly it's just like these scams and killing each other and violence. I'm like, I'm not watching that any longer, because even if it's a show, it still perpetuates that, and it's constantly doing that. So I stopped all of that. I said, I don't really care. Whatever is constantly working to get that into the filters through our mind, it doesn't have a really good agenda. So I feel you have to really make your journey very conscious. This is like a path of life force mastery at its finest, but not just like energetically in frequency. This is also, you have a lot of physical responsibility. The way you work with the blood crystals in your body, you're gonna probably eventually, I feel we're all gonna have the capability to inform through this crystalline light consciousness of our light body, inform our blood cells, and kind of like operate our blood in the body through the life force revitalization essence. So yes, if you're still like what this is all about, what this is, right, what is this, you can always join my mastery courses and join the life force mastery path, or what I call the tantric path. Okay, and if you feel like you can for some reason, I have also a lot of free videos that talk about this. Now we're going to do a global unified message for all of us. And again, I see video being super long, as if it ever isn't. So we're going to do a message from Gaia, which I love. I had these cards for years, and then I didn't use so many times because I had so many newer cards. But just recently, I put them again here. Let's see. From the top, everyone. Let's see. Lost love, and it says surrender, healing, and release. What I feel though in this case is, it reminds me, it takes me back to this one, right? The green one. It's like a lot of us have held expectations still. We had timelines in our own mind, what we want to create, what we want to see in our life until this point. But our souls were more about this high refined work than, you know, the ideas and imaginings we have. Doesn't mean they're not real. It's just like the Spirit knows priorities, and priorities come from greater narratives of life that direct life always what I call through the highest potential of life. This is how Life Force Mastery works. So those of you who have joined a Life Force Mastery path, maybe you had a feeling that something in my life was lost due to that, or not all my desires were fulfilled, and you felt a little abandoned or stranded there. We all did in a way. And now it's time we surrender this, because actually what we've chosen is, maybe when you look at it from a perspective of temporary reality, it feels like, oh, it's more challenging. Then why am I choosing it in this way? It should be easier. That maybe is our belief, our conviction at this time. But in truth, what we're actually told is that it has a higher language and purpose, which we will understand when we really surrender and let go. This is when the magic happens. So it's about release, surrender, healing. This is healing of also the water levels in our body, right? So there's the moon, the lunar, the feminine. Remember, we started this year with the divine feminine wisdom, divine feminine principle of life, really moving through and starting to create through our lives. There were subtle changes. People usually, when they hear certain guidance or information, they jump for the first informational impulse. They think life now is supposed to look this way, and it happens all at once. It's a very gradual process, because it's like the energies in the body have to be worked with, or kind of like we have to rework through many levels so that the rooting of this essence, a spiral consciousness, can truly be the primary narrative before any other influences have their say. So lost love is like nothing that's truly of love can be lost. What is our sense of being lost is that which served the purpose of where we no longer are. And it's time to remember that the old wishes, desires, thoughts that we lived with maybe for years, it's time for them to be surrendered to something new, to a new flow, a new way of being. This is that. Taking life in and breathing with bigger lungs, even where life is lifeless. But that's just a perception here. Life is never lifeless because life starts with you, with your consciousness. And when you're not lifeless, when you're full of life force, it's like you will see, right? It feels like lost, but there's so many hearts that are drawn on this being, on this woman. And it feels like instead of everything that she feels was lost somehow, didn't never become a manifestation or part of her reality, because of that actually brought her into this deep introspection that will make her remember the importance of her own body. I feel this is also about the body because she's naked here and really lying down and being at her most vulnerable self. And I feel towards the end of the year, this is something we're asked to do, to come to the highest point of our vulnerability so that the highest gift of magic can be given. And it's always there, but for us to even perceive that it's given, it means we're able to receive it. That first means we need to be able to even perceive it, right? You can't receive what you can't perceive. So this sense here is, and it's the number 35, maybe it means something to some of you. It means that, we can count all these lost things, we can gather them in a box and say, wow, all these were perceptions of what needs to take place, and they're good, but they served an aspect of me that somehow died. It was surrender to a greater aspect of that now wants to live. So we can give ourselves a new impulse of life, even in the ways that we feel are most kind of most dormant, and we're like this. When you have a prisoner there somewhere, but he's not a prisoner in that cage because his consciousness and through his mind is not enslaved, and he feels free even though he's contained in a cage or something, a tiny corridor or something. And he can ask himself, or she at that time, okay, because I'm so conscious that I'm always free, I can either choose to leave the body. I can do that. I have options, right? I can consciously exit my body once you know that you're able to do that. You can do that if you don't even think that's an option. Then there may be another option. It's like, okay, I could try to break free. He doesn't probably do that because he doesn't do the friction, going against the flow kind of things. And third option could be, it can be something as easy as, what if when I'm here, I write something, I put a scribe, and then as I'm here, before I maybe exit the body, I create something for the next generations to come, and maybe one day they find this reading, the writing, and they read it, and it brings them something that I've already cultivated, and it brings a spark of memory within them. So this is kind of like, even when you think, it's all lost, I have no other options but to be stuck here, there's a reason why things are the way are, and it's only up to our imagination to discover that. And this is how this feels like. And it feels like the energy of December for those of you who are true initiates, not those of you who are propelled by the outside world and told, go party, go here, go there. Yeah, just take your life force, just either shove it off, like shove it away, or like give it away. You are here to be so still in you. It almost feels like this, that we need to learn to be so still in the body, and for that sometimes we have to come into the state when we're in a state of desireless notion, free of all desires, Master have said. That doesn't mean we need to live in poverty and without anything, we're supposed to be abstinent from life. No, it just meant like when you are in awareness that state exists, you can enter it at any time consciously, and you can create from that space, always from that blank slate of consciousness that's held at this higher level. And you can always impulse life from that state, instead of when you're already full of other things, then you're trying to get new impulses, new nuances for life. It's like, it's not created from life force. So sometimes to know and feel the impulse of life, where we really want to move into next, what we want to expand into, we really have to be still. And in that space, we might feel, ooh, so much was lost. So much is like, it's not like lost love in terms of, oh, grieving. It's more like the kind of things you realize they're not losses. But when you enter into this higher consciousness state, that's a desireless state, and you're full with life force, and that's the best possible gift, initiation in its own. It's a state of divine grace because you have mastered your sovereign life force. You're owning it now fully. You're embodying it. It's contained within you. Therefore, the hearts are written in the body. She has all these hearts drawn all over her. And it's the state, in this state, you will feel what is truly not important or necessary. So it feels like it's lost, but it's lost for a reason. You know, like lost cause. There is no such thing. And that which is lost is, you know, it's for a good thing. So I didn't show you, but the stone was this one. You don't see it properly, but it's like this honey stone. It's like golden honey color. And it's a stone I got one. We were at this city by the lake, and they had all these, again, this huge pile of these stones. I just put my hand, and this was the first one I actually took, and it attracted me. It's like this honey frequency. So it's like honey, allowing ourselves to be as soft as honey, as sweet like honey. So write this together. It's not something that's lost in a grieving kind of way, but that we remember that everything now is already within us. And this was the channel guidance we recently received during one of our meditations, that all now is within. We just have to be ready to receive from this light body, to become more and more crystalline, because it's the crystalline form that knows how to work with the body in an illumined way, not through the mind and the filters and all of that. So yeah, I was really happy when I saw this stone. It made me feel like the comfortable feeling. So I hope you have a lot of that, not as a temporary feeling you create by doing something, but that what you do comes from a state of being where you are in that frequency of pure gold. Honey is like liquid gold, right? It's an expression of that. And maybe even for some of you, take more honey in if that's what you feel to do. Some of the yogis say that honey has a very good impact on the body of the way it's made. And yeah, just let's not overdo it, because, you know, we appreciate the bees and we don't take too much. We take only as much as we feel we need in this moment. I hope these messages brought some light, some liquid gold light into your life. Do check out my Patreon. It's a very similar message there, I believe, I feel. And the channel messages coming through when it's time, when I post them, usually after the payout. And yeah, I hope to see you on the other side. I'm wishing you beautiful holiday time wherever you are. Like I said, I recorded all my videos that usually, you know, like da-da-da, spread out, but now I did all at once so that I can have this month of December for my growth to for the next stage that I'm initiating. It's really required. It's needed. That's what masters do. We take time for new initiatives. Sending you so much love, beautiful holiday blessings, and let me know how these messages were for you if you have inclination to do so.